The diesel engine's rumble faded into Michael Andrews' consciousness as he guided the pickup truck down a lonely mountain highway. Night draped itself over road and ridge, folding the world into a silent void. 7 years of deployments, Kandahar's blistering dust, Helmand's hidden IEDs, the jungles of Southeast Asia had taught Michael to move by instinct. Now, in civilian clothes and without mission orders, he felt unmoored. His homecoming was anticlimactic. No banners, no cheering crowds, only the steady drone of rain on the windshield. He'd rented a small cabin on the outskirts of his hometown, far from curious neighbors or brazen reminders of the world he'd left behind. He yearned for quiet, anonymity, and a chance to forget the blast that stole his legs, and, he believed, his K9 partner. The photograph on his dash caught his eye. Bruno, the German shepherd whose coal-black coat blazed under desert suns, sat at Michael's side. Alert ears angled toward an invisible threat. Michael reached out and gripped the frame, his knuckles whitening. He closed his eyes, remembering the day they'd been inseparable. Michael, whispering the 2-note whistle that braced Bruno into detection stance, Bruno's nose wavering over a buried fuse. Then the explosion. He survived. Bruno. Did he? He parked beneath a lone street lamp outside the cabin. Orange water pooled in its corroded oil pan, reflecting Michael's battle-scarred face. He unloaded Duffel's civilian jackets, worn jeans, a half-empty flask of bourbon, and flicked on the lamp above the door. Inside, the cabin smelled of damp pine and stale air. A single rectangle of light cut through drapes over a threadbare recliner. He dropped his bags without unpacking and sat. The silence that followed was terrible. Phantom thuds echoed in his chest, the sound of distant gunfire, the snap of detonating shrapnel. He pressed his head back as if blockading memories at the door. By the time he drew the cork on his bourbon, regret had already taken root. He sipped, closed his eyes, and tried to sleep. Outside, the rain whispered on the roof until far off, the faint staccato of a dog's bark threaded through the darkness. Michael awoke with a start, bourbon-warm breath fogging the window. Barking horse urgent rippled through the storms. Roar. He sat up, heart pounding as if he'd sprinted a kilometer. The cabin's single bulb cast giant shadows on the wooden walls. Michael dropped his flask and grabbed the flashlight, its beam tracking the walls in nervous sweeps. The barking grew louder, closer, the kind of plaintive cry that cut through despair like a lifeline. Michael hesitated. He hadn't handled a dog, leash, since Bruno's final mission. He'd buried that part of himself deep, convinced he'd lost it forever. But the bark, something primal stirred within him. He flung on his raincoat and boots, shoved the flashlight and his old hunting knife into the cargo pocket. He pushed open the door into the cold gale. Rain lashed his face, drenching him instantly. He jogged down the cabin steps toward the fence that bordered his property. The barking faded and then snapped again, closer, now from the junkyard next door. Fenced-in sedans and crushed hulks stood like rusted corpses in the yard. Michael unlatched the gate, metal shrieking in protest. He advanced, flashlight beam slicing through downpour. There, beneath a flickering neon sign reading Carlson's Auto Wrecking, crouched a German shepherd. Ribs protruded, fur matted, one hind leg shackled to a steel post by chain and frayed collar. The dog barked once more, a broken, battered sound. Michael's breath hitched. The dog's muzzle was streaked with dried blood, ears lowered in fear. Michael crouched in the mud, knife in hand, and whispered, "Hey, boy, it's okay." The dog locked eyes with him, and something in that gaze struck a chord in Michael's chest. The ears perked, the muzzle trembled. He knelt beside the chain and cut through rusted links, pink-lipped muzzle brushing Michael's cheek in gratitude. Michael's soul caught fire. "Bruno," he whispered, voice trembling against the storm. Michael staggered back, rubbing his wet face. He fished the old brass whistle from his pocket, the same one he'd used in firefights to cue Bruno. Moisture dripped onto the metal as he raised it to his lips. He blew 2 sharp notes, each crisp as desert dawn. The whistle's echo roared across the junkyard. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then Bruno's ears flicked. His eyes widened in recognition. He barked once low, precise, then began limping toward Michael. Rain plastered his fur, but his stump of a tail thumped with mounting hope. Michael dropped the whistle, grasped Bruno in a hug, and half-carried him back to the truck. Bruno rested his head on Michael's shoulder, muzzle damp against Michael's neck. Michael scooped him into the bed, draping an army-issue poncho over him. Bruno nestled in, eyes closing at the first warm spark of hope he'd felt in weeks. Inside the cabin, Michael lit a fire in the stone hearth. The flames sputtered to life, fighting back darkness. He cleared an area before the stove and spread a thick blanket on the floor. Bruno's heavy panting filled the room as Michael eased him off the tailgate and onto the blanket. He filled an old metal bowl with water and set it near Bruno's nose. The dog lapped gratefully. Michael knelt beside him, pressing a palm to that battered head. "You're home," he said, voice choked. Bruno whined, eyes wet, resting his chin on Michael's knee. Michael poured coffee strong black in 2 chipped mugs. He handed one to Bruno, more gesture than necessity, and sipped the other, breath steaming in the cold cabin air. In the fire's glow, he studied Bruno, the grimace of pain in his stance, the dullness of spirit that no amount of warmth could chase away. His mind drifted back to Operation Sandgate. It had been a decisive mission: sever the enemy's supply lines and ignite a turning point in the war. Michael and Bruno scouted a deserted stretch of road shoulder, swollen with hidden explosives. Michael readied his device. Bruno stood sentinel, a nose twitching in anticipation. The wire crackled 2 meters ahead, then the blast. Michael awoke to chaos, sand choking his lungs, ears ringing, flames licking around him. He called for Bruno, belligerent shouts scarring the comms channel. No response. The medevac arrived. He was lifted away. In the field hospital's haze, he asked after Bruno and was told Bruno had been killed instantly. No body recovered. The official report named Bruno K9 KIA, deemed beyond recovery. That memory carved an ache so vast Michael learned to lock it away. Yet here Bruno was anachronism of loyalty, staring at him in the firelight, tail giving a faint wag as if to say, "I'm still here." Michael's heart swelled. He buried his face in Bruno's fur, inhaling the scent of dog and burning pine. "I'm so sorry, buddy." By first light, Michael loaded Bruno into the truck and drove to Dr. Ellen Ramirez's veterinary clinic. Bruno's limp had worsened. Dehydration and malnutrition etched every bone. Dr. Ramirez greeted them with tailored compassion, her white coat dotted with pet hair. In the exam room, she cleaned Bruno's wounds with antiseptic, noting bruises from chained confinement. Michael rubbed his temples. Dr. Ramirez activated her scanner over Bruno's shoulder. The bluish glow illuminated a small chip beneath the fur. She scrolled through her tablet as Bruno flinched. "Michael, your dog is chipped," she said softly. "Registered to military working dogs. I see here Bruno's tag number and deployment records." She tapped the screen. He was declared K9, killed in action after Sandgate. But look, 2 months later, a transfer record shows him reassigned for a classified program. She frowned. Then he vanishes from the rolls. Michael's blood ran cold. They lied. His voice was a rasp. Dr. Ramirez set Bruno's padded sling. "I'll treat his leg and keep him overnight. If you want answers, you'll need to dig into military records." Michael nodded numbly. He stayed at Bruno's side as Dr. Ramirez stitched torn ligaments and set the leg in a soft splint. Bruno whimpered, pressing his muzzle against Michael's hand. Michael's chest tightened. He had promised never to abandon his partner again. For days, Michael balanced guard duty at Bruno's kennel stall with research. He filled FOIA requests, scoured military after-action reports, and made phone calls to old contacts. He reached Kevin Rowe, his radio operator in Sandgate, now a civilian contractor. Kevin's voice crackled with disbelief. "You've got to be careful, Mike. That program, as it was off the books, nobody talks about it." But Kevin agreed to help decrypt data from the leaked chip records. Michael also called Captain Torres, the Sandgate commander, only to hear a curt, "unavailable." That silence stoked Michael's resolve. Late at night, he pored over satellite logs, civilian transport manifests, and a single email leaked by an unknown whistleblower. Video stills of Bruno trapped in a desert compound, masked handlers injecting him with experimental serums. A final notation: asset decommissioned 08-1420XX. Bruno's battered frame pressed close as Michael scrolled through the footage, head spinning. He stroked Bruno's ears. "What did they do to you, boy?" Bruno licked his palm, eyes shimmering with trust. Michael closed his laptop. "I'll make them pay." That tip: midnight at abandoned Hangar 12 off Route 58. Michael cradled Bruno in his arms and drove through a rain-slick back road. The hangar loomed under cracked floodlights. Rusted crates and shattered windows lay like war debris. Michael's flashlight beam traversed broken crates stamped classified. A figure stepped from the shadows, Captain Torres, rainwater pooling on his camo. He raised a pistol. "What do you want, Andrews?" Michael squared his shoulders. "Answers." His hand hovered over the hunting knife at his belt. Torres's expression hardened. "You should have left well enough alone," he snapped. "That dog, he was an experiment. We used him to detect biochemical threats. We lost control. Orders were clear. Euthanize and call it a casualty." Michael's heart thundered. "You betrayed him," Torres sneered. "War isn't clean. Assets are expendable." He fired. Michael dove behind a crate as bullets shredded wood. Bruno leapt between Michael and Torres, barking, teeth bared, tackling Torres's leg. The captain staggered, scream breaking his composure. Michael lunged, knife drawn. In the roar of thunder, he drove Torres's gun away. The masked men Torres's team surged from the darkness, firearms aimed. "Fall back," Michael hissed. He grabbed Bruno's collar, dragging him behind scattered barrels. Bullets sang overhead. Heart hammering, Michael kicked a loose panel. Sparks flew. He vaulted through the hole, rain lashing him, and sprinted for the truck with Bruno at his heels. The men hesitated, unwilling to chase into the storm. Michael gunned the engine. As die-cast tires bit the gravel, he glanced back to see Torres. Collapse, bleeding, eyes wild with rage. Michael's chest heaved. Bruno licked his face, eyes bright. "You saved my life again," Michael whispered. Bruno nudged him, as if proud to serve. Back at a friend's farmhouse, Michael and Kevin laid out a makeshift war room. Maps, satellite prints, torn-out file pages pinned to corkboard. Kevin fed Bruno dog food as Michael stitched the final. Video takedown: they had whistleblower video of chemical inoculations, the false KIA report, shipping manifests proving Bruno's transport, and overheard orders to dispose of K9 assets. Still missing was confirmation from official channels. They needed public exposure. They enlisted investigative journalist Lauren Chen. In her cluttered newsroom, Lauren scanned documents. She leaned forward, eyes blazing. "This is explosive nuclear. We go public with this and they'll come after." She paused. "I'm in." They scheduled a live expose at dawn in Grand Junction Square. Cameras were rallied, news crews briefed, and press releases teased. Michael parked by the statue of a local war hero, Bruno resting on a blanket. At his side, early joggers paused, drawn to the unusual scene. A uniformed veteran flanked by a battle-scared dog. At 6:59 a.m., Lauren's camera flicked live. A gathering crowd hushed. Flashbulbs popped. Michael addressed viewers. "Operation Sandgate was sold as a success. I was told my partner Bruno died, but I found him abandoned, tortured, used as a test subject. I have evidence, official orders, clandestine videos, and the false K9 KIA report." He paused, eyes misting. "We have a duty to the truth." Behind him, Bruno sat alert, ears pricked. Michael displayed documents on a table. Press and citizens gasped. Whispers rose. Police sirens wailed. From the fringes, black SUVs screeched in. Unmarked men in tactical gear burst into the square, weapons raised. "Shut it down!" one yelled. Lauren stepped in front of Michael, standing firm with camera rolling. Bruno sprang at the nearest man, teeth flashing. The assailant staggered back, stunned by a dog once believed dead. The crowd scattered. Media crews switched to crisis mode, live coverage of the ambush. Police arrived, guns drawn, detaining attackers. Michael scooped Bruno into his arms. "They can't silence us now," he said, voice low but firm. The broadcast cut, but clips circulated online within minutes, trending nationwide. Chapter 10. Congressional Reckoning. Approx 4,100 SHARs. The expose ignited a firestorm. Headlines screamed of military malpractice, canine cruelty, and concealed civilian casualties in Operation Sandgate. Within days, Congress convened hearings. Michael and Bruno took the witness stand before a Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. Deputies tweaked their lights. Cameras rolled. Senator Caldwell peered over notes. "Staff Sergeant Andrews, can you confirm Bruno's official K9 KIA status?" Michael inhaled. "Official records say KIA, but we know that's false. Bruno survived. I have logs proving his reassignment and the deception." He laid copies of orders, shipping manifests, and the whistleblower video before the dais. On so. Cue, Bruno performed his two-note whistle stand at Michael's command, ears cocked, nose raised, demonstrating the bond forged in combat. Members of Congress exchanged stunned looks. Caldwell nodded gravely. "We will investigate these allegations fully." Over subsequent hearings, generals and contractors testified. Documents emerged revealing chemical experiments, civilian deaths buried beneath false mission briefs, and calls to euthanize exposed assets. Months later, Bruno's name was cleared. The military K9 Corps issued a formal apology to Michael and Bruno. The Secretary of Defense announced disciplinary actions against those responsible for the cover-up and instituted stringent new protections for working dogs. Michael accepted the letter with Bruno at his side, tail wagging. Veterans groups hailed him a hero. Animal rights organizations called Bruno the dog that uncovered a war crime. Michael's PTSD therapy progressed, buoyed by Bruno's loyalty. They moved to a secluded mountain cabin, ramped entrances, heated floors, and a yard where Bruno could run free. There they found shelter from flash bullets of memory. Michael joined veterans' retreat programs, mentoring soldiers and their K9 partners. He shared the story of Operation Sandgate, not only its dark truths but the power of truth to heal. Bruno, older now, accompanied him, demonstrating detection drills and soft rescue tactics. Their story gave courage to others, trapped by silence and shame. Years passed. Bruno's muzzle silvered. Arthritis slowed his gait. Michael cared for him as Bruno had saved him meticulously, washing paws, massaging sore hips, and recalling each triumph. On crisp autumn mornings, Michael wheeled Bruno to the meadow where wildflowers once thrived. He tossed tennis balls. Bruno fetched them in slow, determined strides. One dawn, Michael found Bruno still in his bed, breathing shallowly, eyes fixed on Michael with profound trust. He sat beside him, tears hot on his cheeks. "You taught me to never give up," Michael whispered. Bruno exhaled a gentle sigh and drifted away under Michael's hand. The world mourned Bruno's passing. At a small ceremony beneath the maple tree by their cabin, Michael spoke softly. "Bruno was more than a partner. He was my compass in darkness. He reminded me that loyalty, love, and courage can outlast any cover-up." He placed a polished stone marker at Bruno's grave. Bruno, 2008-2024 warrior, guardian, friendin. The years that followed, Michael carried Bruno's whistle everywhere around his neck as a talisman. He founded K9 Truth Coalition, an organization dedicated to protecting military and police dogs from abuse and ensuring transparency in their service records. Michael traveled to Washington, D.C. and small towns alike, speaking at conferences, schools, and military academies. His message was simple. Every soldier, whether human or canine, deserves honesty, respect, and care. Veterans and dog handlers reached out, sharing stories of mistreatment or loss. Michael's coalition provided legal aid, veterinary care funds, and advocacy, preventing future tragedies like Bruno's. Back at his mountain cabin, a new generation of German Shepherd puppies padded through the yard, rescued dogs in training for service. Michael taught them basic commands, Bruno's spirit alive in every eager snout and wagging tail. When the whistle blew its two-note call, they froze in perfect alert stance, the echo of a bond that had once saved one man's life and then sparked a quest for justice. In the heart of the forest, Michael Andrews paused by Bruno's grave each Veterans Day. Pine needles drifted like confetti. He placed fresh flowers, wild asters and daisies on the stone. His hand trembled as he touched the engraved name. "Thank you, Bruno," he whispered into the hush. "You taught me loyalty is truth, and courage is never silent." A soft breeze stirred the maples overhead, as if Bruno's spirit wagged an unseen tale. Michael closed his eyes, recalling the dog's triumphant bark in the junkyard, the roar of sand-drenched wind, the crackle of congressional hearing mics. He drove back to the cabin, the whistle warm against his chest. Inside, he found a letter from a young veteran. "Your story saved me. I found the courage to speak my truth." Michael pinned the letter above his desk, amid medals and photos of Bruno bounding through sunlit fields. Outside, the pines whispered reassurance. In the tapestry of leaves, light and shadow interwove just as Michael and Bruno had faced darkness and found redemption. Their journey proved that a bond honed in war transcends the battlefield, that love defines survival, and that one whistle call can ignite a movement. And so Michael Andrews, once adrift, found purpose in truth, carrying Bruno's legacy forward, a sentinel for justice, a guardian of loyalty, and a beacon for every soldier, canine and human, who needs a friend to call them home.